What's up, y'all? I'm going to do a quick little video before I head off to jiu-jitsu class about the UFC fight night coming up this weekend in Houston, Texas. And to be honest, for a fight night card, and maybe it's because they're not doing it at the Apex, where the Apex is a very small crowd. It's a very intimate setting, which is a really weird word to use when talking about attending an event where people are getting knocked out and beating the shit out of each other and stuff like that. The event's in Houston. There's going to be a dynamite crowd there. It's going to be loud, even for now to pay-per-view. And there's quite a few good fights on the card. Bobby Green was originally supposed to fight Hooker. Now he's fighting Turner. You've got the main event, which is Sarukian and Dariush, and that's the one I want to go over now. There's a bunch of other good fights on that card. I'm actually going to have people over to watch it, so it should be a wild one, even though it's a fight night. It's not even a pay-per-view. Sarukian and Dariush is a very interesting matchup because it's the prime example, at least the way I view it playing out. It's a prime example of how MMA math doesn't work. And before I get into MMA math, I just want to say there's a big difference between MMA math and strength of schedule. So when Dariush was going to fight Oliveira, a lot of people picked Dariush, and my argument was, while Dariush was close to getting finished by Drakkar Klose, Oliveira was finishing Chandler, Poirier, and Gaethje in that order. And a lot of people said, well, it's MMA math. That's not MMA math. MMA math is going to be the situation that we have here, where Dariush beat Gamrot in I don't want to say a one-sided, but as the fight was progressing, it became more one-sided fight. And Sarukian lost a split decision. You could argue that he won. It was back and forth. It was a good match. So MMA math would basically be like Dariush beat Gamrot, Gamrot beat Sarukian, Dariush beat Sarukian. I like Dariush. I don't know what it is about him that I like. He looks much older than he is because he's had salt and pepper probably since he was in high school. And the way that he carries himself as like a very, very, very devout Christian, he's got a very like California surfer guy kind of way of talking, which he sounds different than he should look when you see him. He's an animal. He doesn't look physically imposing, and he doesn't look like he's a naturally like just born athletic guy. But he takes what he does well and he uses it. And if you watch, I'm not going to watch the fight that he had with Oliveira because there's not enough video of what's going on in that fight to analyze how it's going to play out in this fight. I watched the fight with Gamrot because I think the fight with Gamrot is closer to how this fight's going to be than the one was with Oliveira. And in the fight with Gamrot, you could see that Dariush had a clear advantage on the feet. And if it was just a kickboxing match, Dariush would have won. Sarukian on the feet moves way better than Gamrot. Sarukian is for a guy who's one of these Dagestani wrestlers. He's not Dagestani. He is I don't think he's Armenian, and I don't think he's Georgian. It's slipping me where he's from, but he's an Eastern European style wrestler. For being that as his base, he's very fluid the way he moves on his feet. Now, when he starts striking, he's not as fluid. You could see he's a little more tense, which can wear you out. But the way that he strikes compared to the way Gamrot strikes is night and day. And I think that presents an interesting challenge for Dariush, because Dariush could have looked at the Gamrot fight and said, I can counter wrestle and counter grapple and neutralize him, and on the feet I can wear him down. And I don't think he'll have that as much of that same effect on Sarukian, because on the feet Sarukian can move better than Gamrot. I will say Gamrot striking for what we saw of it in the Fiziev fight did look a lot better. He looked pretty good on the feet going with Fiziev, and Fiziev looked pretty good grappling going with Gamrot, but that's a completely different fight. We all know how that played out. So I'm leaning towards Sarukian in this fight. I think Sarukian is really good. I'd like to see him. I don't know him in person. My old business partner is one of his head coaches, and I'd like to meet Sarukian in person because he doesn't look like a big 55er. He looks like a guy that could go to featherweight and make the weight reasonably, but he might just be perceived as that. I can't see Dariush making 45. So there might be a little bit of a size advantage that Dariush didn't have over Gamrot that he'll have over Sarukian, but Sarukian is going to have more striking to offer than what Gamrot did for Dariush. I'm picking Sarukian in this fight. I don't know why, but I think it's just the problems that he presents for Dariush. I think there's too many that Dariush would have to handle. Now, if Dariush wins, I wouldn't be surprised. I didn't realize it till yesterday. He's never lost a decision. He's been knocked out 4 times and submitted by Michael Chiesa. He got submitted 1 time by Chiesa. And knocked out 4 other times. TKOs, you know. I think there was 1 or 2 KOs and 2 TKOs. So he doesn't lose decisions, apparently, which means that as the fight goes on, he probably gains momentum, or guys wear down trying to beat him, and then he takes over. I don't think Sarukian is going to deal with that. Sarukian's been 5 rounds, and I don't think Dariush has, so that's going to be interesting how that plays out. I'm slightly picking Sarukian in this one. I think that he can do enough on the feet, and I think the way he grapples is a little bit different than Gamrot grapples, and I think the way he offensively tries to wrestle and grapple, it's going to be harder for Dariush to counter wrestle and counter grapple. It seemed like when Gamrot was trying to engage in wrestling with Dariush, the names, all these European names, is killing me, like saying them at one time. So when Gamrot's trying to engage in wrestling with Dariush, I think he was wrestling a little bit more the way that Dariush wrestles. He was shooting low singles, he was shooting a lot of doubles, and then as Dariush was getting up, that's when he would go to body locks and Dariush was escaping. The way Sarukian shoots is a little bit different. He mixes in a little more of a Sambo style. He's a little bit more of an Islam Makhachev kind of grappler. He's not just going to shoot low singles. He's not going to shoot doubles. He's kind of going to do a little bit more to mix it up. And I think that when you have that style going against an American style, which is what Dariush has, even though, I mean, he's American, but his parents are Assyrian. So he's got an American style of wrestling. And I think that the way that Sarukian's wrestling offense is, it probably will have more questions than Dariush's American style defense is going to have for answers. But who knows, man? It's fights, and there could be a fucking head kick KO out of nowhere, like there was in the Makhachev and Volkanovski fight. Either way, it's going to be a banger. Either way, the Turner and Bobby Green fight is going to be a banger. There's a couple other ones below it too that are going to be wild. Gastelum is fighting. Man, it's slipping me. It's slipping me right now. But he's going back down to welterweight. That's going to be a good fight. I don't know why the name of the guy that he's fighting is slipping me, but that's going to be a really good fight there. And Gastelum, I just realized that he's only 32. He's been in the UFC so long. I thought he was much older than he is, and he has had some serious wars. He's fighting Sean Brady, and Sean Brady just had his first loss to Bilal Muhammad. And I'll say this: in the Bilal Muhammad fight, Brady looked good until he got tired, and when he got tired, he became hittable. Do not get tired against Kelvin Gastelum. He will fuck you up. And if Kelvin Gastelum hits you, he's putting you to sleep. I like both guys in that fight. Part of me roots for Gastelum because he's a little bit older, and I think that he should have been fighting at welterweight this whole time. And I'd like to see him like be a guy to be thrown in the mix and give welterweights problems. But at the same time, Brady's a dog too, and I wouldn't mind seeing him be successful. This is one of those events where I don't think there's a single fight that I'm rooting specifically for one person over another. The American top team part of me may root for Sarukian 5% more than rooting for Dariush. But if Dariush wins, I wouldn't be upset either. You know, I like him as a fighter. I wish that guy nothing but the best. He carries himself very well. He has a good attitude about fighting. And he fights completely opposite the way that he carries himself, which I find people like that very interesting. So it's going to be a wild one this weekend. I'm looking forward to the show. But I've got Sarukian pulling a victory. I don't know how, but I can see him edging one out. But if it goes the other way, I wouldn't be surprised. So until then, take care, motherfuckers, and we'll get to some football talk tomorrow. See you guys.